Hello, and welcome to the Children's Services Council of Broward County. This video will provide you with an overview on how to prepare your budget, a key component of the funding process. It is essential to have a budget as it allows you to establish and accomplish the main objectives of your program. Your program budget is a method of allocating the expenses for the program that arises from the goals of this program. As with any budgetary method, the first step should be defining and identifying the budget activities. This detailed plan should include the program objectives, the task, and the activities that will be involved. Because your budget is a projected framework of the cost to operate the program, the goal is to ensure you request sufficient funds to cover all essential elements of your program. If you have a prior year budget, that is an excellent place to start using the previous year's budget and actual expenses, and then build upon this for this fiscal year. Direct program costs are most important, so make the best estimate of what resources will be needed to operate the program for the contract period. To create a successful budget, please ensure you gather the following details before you begin. You will need to consult with the program director, finance department, and your HR department to ensure you have the accurate and most complete details. First, you need the name of the program, the contract period, contract allocation amount, and contract number. Second, ensure you have all the employees that are going to be affiliated with the program, their names, titles, pay rates, time allocated to the program, and benefits that will be paid. Thirdly, the cost of the benefits included in the workers' compensation rates, health insurance premium, retirement benefit rates, and unemployment compensation rates. Next, ensure you have the various expenses that will be utilized in your program, such as the staff travel or mileage, utilities, space, supplies, flex funds, or value added if applicable. You'll also need the details of your match contribution or your match funding information. Most important, you will need the CSC provider budget guidelines. These guidelines will provide detailed information on each section of the budget form and answer any additional questions or concerns that you may have. Let us begin by reviewing some of the sections of the budget form and how to complete. First, start with the name of your agency, the name of the program, the contract number, and the period. The first section we will complete is your regular salaries and wages. In this section, you will only include positions that are direct cost to the program. This includes those program staff positions that perform activities that are exclusively associated with the specified CSC program. Indicate the name of each position, the name of the staff, whether the position is a full-time or part-time position to the agency, a description of the program cost, this is your method of calculation, and the amount that will be charged to the contract. Your FICA is automatically calculated in the budget worksheet using the total salaries and wages and the 7.65% established rate. The CSC provides funding for the following fringe benefits: retirement, life, and health, including dental, vision, short-term disability, long-term disability, gap insurance, workers' compensation, and unemployment compensation tax. This calculation is only for the employer's portion of retirement for the position. Please list each position separately. Copy the position title and staff name as stated in the salary section that we completed earlier. In the description of the program cost, this is your method of calculation column, be sure to provide the detailed calculation that you are using to compute the amount allocated to that position, such as the monthly rate paid by the employer, the number of months, and percentage of the cost allocated to the program. Most importantly, remember, if the position is only partially allocated to the program, the fringe benefit must also be allocated at the same rate. This next section is for your life and health insurance. Again, this section is only for the employer's portion of this health that includes your dental, your vision, your short-term disability, your long-term disability insurance premium. Be sure to list each position separately. Copy the position title and the staff name as stated in the prior section for the salary. Be sure to include your method of calculation, and also again, if the position is only partially allocated to the program, be sure that the fringe benefit is allocated at the same rate. The next section is your workers' compensation, which is insurance purchased by the agency that provides benefits for job-related employee injuries. Be sure to list each position covered by your workers' compensation policy and calculate the cost based on the policy rate and the portion of their salary allocated to the program. Next section is your unemployment compensation. This is an employer-funded tax that gives short-term benefits to those who lost or left their jobs for various reasons. The state of Florida's unemployment compensation rate is based on the first $7,000 of an employee's pay times the state of Florida unemployment tax rate for the year. Again, please be sure to list each position separately, copy the position title and staff name as stated in the salary section. And again, most importantly, if the position is partially allocated to the program, be sure your fringe benefit is also allocated at the same rate. We will now discuss your various expense accounts. Each expense line should be completed with the corresponding detailed description of the program cost and also the budgeted cost that will be charged to the CSC contract. You may perform calculations in the amount charged to contract column of the Excel worksheet, or you may input the whole dollar amount charged based on the description of the program cost outline. Expand rows or wrap text to fit into the rows. Expense line 1200 is for local or out-of-town staff travel. These are positions requiring travel, mileage rates, monthly mileage estimates, and total budgeted reimbursement. Expense line 1300 is for contractual services, consultants, or professional fees. For each contractual staff or consultant or contracted service, be sure to list the position title, the name if known, the services to be provided, the rates of pay, work products, and method of payment. In this sample budget that we're reviewing, we only have mileage. We do not have any contractual services. So you'll only utilize the expense lines that are applicable to your program. Expense line 1400 is for space and utilities. The building's total square footage must be documented for the budget and the cost per square foot. The cost per square foot should not exceed $22 per square feet, inclusive of janitorial and utilities. If janitorial and utilities are budgeted separately in the cost per square foot, then the maximum cost for space is $14 per square feet. The provider may choose one of two allocation methods. The allocation method chosen should be based on the nature of the services provided in the program. Programs that require space per student participant would utilize an allocation based on usage of square footage per space. Clinical intensive type programs that require space based on the number of staff would use an allocation based on their full-time employees. Please reference our budget guidelines, which provides more information and can help assure you choose the correct allocation. Things to remember. Regardless of the method that you utilize to calculate your space, the CSC will not reimburse for the cost of space that exceeds $22 per square feet, inclusive of janitorial and utilities. If janitorial and utilities are budgeted separately in the cost per square feet, then the maximum cost for space should not exceed $14 per square feet. Line 1600 is for your expense and your supplies. Expense includes, but are not limited to, office supplies, communications, printing and postage, training materials, snacks, background screening. Expenses also include expendable items costing less than $1,500, such as books, tape recorders, records, management software, etc. Generally, supplies include any materials that are expendable or consumed during the project year. Our next section is our cost reimbursement lines. Items requested in budget lines 8010 to 8095 are reimbursed solely on a cost reimbursement basis. Therefore, support and documentation will be required with your reimbursement request to support these expenses. To ensure that you fully utilize funds budgeted in these areas, think carefully. Only include amounts that are highly likely to be spent and do not over budget in these areas. Expense line 8010 is for flex funds. This may be used to meet individual client needs that present barriers to program participation and success. This emergency financial assistance allows providers to address the threat of foreclosure, eviction, or termination of utility services, temporary childcare expenses, home repairs, food, clothing, back-to-school supplies, bus passes, or gas cards, or other services or commodities. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. Expense line 8020 is for value added. This is used to pay for creative program enhancements that support the program's goals and improve participant participation and commitment. Food or refreshment for group activities, transportation for field trips, and participation or goal achievement incentives such as gift certificates or tickets to games or shows are some examples. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. In our sample budget that we're reviewing, we're only utilizing expense lines 8010, 8020, and 8050. Please refer to your provider budget guidelines for additional details behind the additional expense line items. This section is our startup expense line items. Please note, these funds are intended for those budgeted items needed to prepare and start the program. They must be used within 30 to 90 days of the contract effective date as specified. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. Please note that startup is used only during the initial contract year. These costs should be assigned to the appropriate expense line in subsequent years, such as staffing or expenses, etc. Expense line 8092 is for startup salaries or benefits. In this section, you will need to list each position by position title. The position title must match exactly the position title used in the contract scope of work staffing chart. Show the annual salary rate and the percentage of time to be devoted to the program. Include formulas used to calculate the fringe benefits. Only include positions that are startup positions. These funds are cost reimbursement. Startup staff benefit, FICA, is used to calculate it at 7.65% on all salaries. Health insurance is required for all employees working 30 or more hours per week. Retirement expense is optional, but definitely allowable by the CSC. Show formulas used to calculate fringe benefits that are retirement, insurance, workers' comp, unemployment, etc. Be sure to identify which positions the various calculations are referring to. Be sure to list each position separately. In this section for 8092, only include positions that are startup positions. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. In subsequent years, these costs should then be assigned to staffing. Expense line 8093 is for your startup expense or supplies. Itemize expendable items and show how the amounts are calculated. Expenses include but are not limited to office supplies, communications, printing and postage, training materials. Expenses also include expendable items costing less than $1,500, such as books, testing instruments, tape recorders. Other items include non-capital equipment items with a cost of less than $1,500. Example, your computers, your printer, your cabinets. Generally, supplies include any materials that are expendable or consumed during the course of the project. Only include supplies that are startup supplies. These funds are cost reimbursement funds. In our example, we're utilizing expense line 8093. In this sample program budget, we are utilizing laptops, which we're purchasing a total of 6 for $750. We're also purchasing one printer and then the Microsoft Office software for $200. Expense line 8900 is for your administrative cost. Administrative costs relate to the day-to-day operations of the agency and pertain to operation expenses rather than those expenses that are directly related to the provision of services. For example, a receptionist answering all incoming calls, the cost of doing payroll for the entire agency, and management staff salaries could count as administrative cost. CSC program administrative cost is limited to 12% of the requested amount, less the administrative cost. This means that you may request up to 12% of the total direct service costs as administrative costs to administer the project. Administrative costs must be itemized and defined and must include a description of the method of calculation. The final section on your budget will be for your match contributions. The CSC seeks to fund projects that it can expect to operate in a fiscally sound manner. Therefore, there is a funding requirement of a 5% match for all funding provided through the CSC. It is required that, at a minimum, 5% of the total grant dollars requested from the CSC be provided by any lead agency and/or any partners involved in a CSC-funded program. The match can be provided as cash or an in-kind contribution and must be directly related to the program's operation. Acceptable cash match may include matching funds from another unallocated source that directly supports the program. Parent fees are not allowed as cash matches. Acceptable in-kind contribution may include volunteers, administrative overhead, and equipment or space dedicated to the program. Now that you've completed your budget, this is the perfect time to be sure to double-check all entries and formulas before finalizing your budget. Congratulations, you have now completed building your budget. Thank you.